you know, just going on journeys to different places. A lot of it, you know, deals with the mountains, but also where I kind of see this work as kind of being the underlands, kind of, you know, of what lives below the surface, where there's life, you know, that's parallel in our feet, and which brings me to think about our stewardship of the land, and how, you know, a lot of times, you know, we care more about the dead than the living, you know, in a sense where, you know, we have tombs, and, you know, we nurture life, you know, and just that circle. Formally, I'm interested in process. These are actually these are actually structures.
Go ahead.
Wire structures, you know, with fabric that's draped in glue and oil paint on some, and encaustic on other, and kind of the more latter work, where I apply thick and heavy paint to kind of create that surface texture and conflict in the piece. I started making wall pieces when I was in my MFA program at UMass, about in 2014, and then about 2015, you know, they just started to kind of take off. They started off as flat, you know, kind of flat and like adjustable puzzle pieces. Then I found the wonders of spray foam. Then I didn't like how, you know, the fumes of that, and, you know, it's getting all over my skin. You know, it's just really a nasty material. So I kind of explored, you know, draping fabric, and that kind of like rigidness you get when you soak it in wood glue and latex. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for me so far? Yes.
So, are all your pieces based off of like real landscapes?
More so the narrative, because when I start the pieces, I basically, you know, write the concept of, you know, of the piece, and then that kind of serves as a spiritual cleansing, and, you know, where that's kind of a springboard. As an abstract artist, I do understand that the story of behind the piece might not be you know, relevant right away, or might need further reading into. I'm totally okay with that. To me, in a lot of ways, the idea behind the art object is, you know, kind of just as important as the art object in itself, and it's just kind of where my mind goes, and kind of just letting the process take over. Yes?
Do you ever incorporate sound materials, like when you're out walking in nature and you see something with that?
Actually, in my current work that I'm working on in my studio right now, like I'm doing a lot of like carving into wood branches that I found near my girlfriend's house in my mother's house in Maine. So I'm currently had a huge wood haul from that, and I'm combining it with 3D resin printing and fabric and encaustics. Yes?
What would you say the most difficult part of your process is?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. So I would say the end part of my process, deciding when to call it a day on the painting. I consider these paintings, but kind of, you know, because there's that one moment where if you just add one more brush stroke, and then the painting just goes south. Generally, a rule of thumb, which I have, is when I resolve a piece, I keep it on a clean wall in my studio, or I put it in timeout for a week or so, and I look at it again a week later, you know, and if there's anything that if I can't think of anything else to do with it, if it feels resolved, you know, then you know, that's when I know to stop. When I was in undergrad at Edinburgh University, I had an instructor told me the most difficult part of painting is to find that point where you have extreme unity and extreme variety. It's kind of like that tipping scale, whereas you can have extreme variety but being chaotic, ununified, and ultimately the painting implodes on itself. And then you have extreme unity, whereas the piece is just completely bland and uninteresting. So I would say the end of my process is probably the most difficult part. Yes?
Who would you say as an artist inspires you the most?
Yeah, excellent question. Ansel Kiefer. Ansel Kiefer, Antonio Tapiez, Alberto Bori, and also Franz West. I also love Goya. I love my 17th century painters, and also Bernini. I could talk to you all day about how he manipulated material to make marble that flesh tone. But you know, in contemporary context, Ansel Kiefer definitely probably has the biggest sway on me. Yes.
Do you remember which one of your pieces took you the longest?
Which one of these pieces took me the longest?
There's more.
Yeah. I would say back corner of the very last piece that, you know, went through many trips. It took me a few months to do. Went from my main studio in Kensington to my home studio, then my main studio. So I basically build them up and paint them in different studios at the time.
Do you have a favorite?
Yes, I do. This one right here. I'm a sucker for small paintings. Small paintings and big paintings, they have a different set of problems. When I was in undergrad and graduate school, it was all big. My instructors were all big, you know. Then I graduated. I realized that small work sells better, but also there is that kind of that notion of, with a small painting, it gives you more opportunity to take risks. Whereas if you have a huge honking painting in front of you, which you spent so much money in the materials, you know, you get a little timid at some point to make those risks. That's why, you know, a lot of times when I work personally, I probably have like one larger painting with maybe, you know, about maybe 4 or 5 smaller paintings I'm working on at the same time that relate to it, but also serves as a way for me to take risks and solve problems.
Did the idea strike you when you're like walking the beach or something and you're like, oh, garbage?
Pardon?
So did it strike you when you're walking the beach or finding trash somewhere in particular?
Yeah, I don't, you know, like, I do think a lot of ways, like our relationship, like what we leave behind, like on the beach for, since I go to the beach a lot to fish, so I basically do like what's going on at AC, like there's a lot of trash there, Jersey Shore, but also like a lot of times, like, you know, there are things that we see that are, you know, for instance, like a car crash. Sometimes, you know, like something that's so horrible, but you just can't resist the look at. You know, like a lot of times, there's kind of like a grotesque beauty in it. I'm not 1,000% sure if that's an adequate answer to your question, but yeah.
And when you were looking at it, you said it was wood stain and glue? Like the fabric?
It's actually a latex paint.
Latex paint?
Paint and like the true hold like level 3 glue. You need like the really expensive kind of like the higher up glue to get the more rigid surfaces. But the piece behind you, and also the piece next to it, and a couple other pieces, that one and also that one as well, are done with encaustic as well, where encaustic is a wax-based paint, which you have to melt in order to work the pigments. Because all paint is dirt and a binder. For instance, oil paint is dirt and linseed oil. Acrylic paint is dirt and liquefied plastic. And encaustics is dirt, wax, and a little bit of Damar resin. So basically, you have a pigment that's suspended in wax, and you melt it at. You don't want to go over 200 degrees, or else the paint becomes toxic. And that is a really liquid, viscous form that hardens and dries right away, which kind of seals the fabric into like a more rigid form. Or you just dip you melt beeswax and kind of drape it over the structure.
Interesting.
Yes.
So how long have you been doing this type of work?
So basically, I've been making abstract paintings since my junior year of undergrad. And since I've been out of grad school now for since 2016, I kind of never really looked back at, I kind of evolved from flat color field paintings to, shaped paintings during my second semester of grad school. Was looking at a lot of Frank Stella and a lot of those modernist painters. And then, I decided to make the painting come off the wall. And then I took a little break from wall pieces, about maybe a 3-year break from wall pieces. Then, dusted up, took it out again in about maybe 2020 to make this series of work. Yes?
And you make a living off this? Like, this is your everyday job?
Definitely, I do try to sell. I have taught in the past to kind of, fill up the gaps. A lot of times you have to, find some supplemental, income in order to do what you love. But, this always takes, first and foremost. And, I come home every day, let out the dogs, and, I get to work, and, while I'm done working in my main studio in Kensington, I work at my home studio on other projects and applying for shows and exhibition opportunities. So my biggest advice is definitely keep your nose to the ground, apply to everything you see, and if you get told no, it happens. Just their loss. Just move on to the next one. General rule of thumb I have on a day where I receive a rejection letter, I apply to something else to keep things going.